Guys, what is this? I watched maybe a minute of this. I think this is pretty decent. Pretty decent trick. I don't know
Okay,
this guy,
everyone,
by the way.
I
I've
want to give an
never watched
update.
this guy. He just came up in my recommend, and yeah,
On
let's
the
watch him
current
it.
meta in online politics because a lot has happened in the past few weeks. We need to go over it. So let's just jump right in. Obviously, the biggest update is the new Adventures in Zion expansion pack. This has been probably one of the most controversial expansion packs in the past couple years. And it's really shaken up the meta because a lot of champions that used to have synergy together just don't. So good luck trying to run a Candace Owens and a Ben Shapiro on the same right wing comp anymore. It's just not going to happen. So we'll obviously get into how this new expansion affects the other team comps, but the other big news is new champion spotlight. Javier Milei for the Libertarians got released. A lot of hype around him. As usual with new champions, that's how it works, but his ult is actually pretty sick. Every time he levels up, he eliminates an entire government agency, which if you're running Libertarian comp, it's obviously, going to be very OP, but that's going to have a hard time scaling towards the late game, but, we'll see. And for those who don't know the lingo, comp is short for team composition, and in online politics and other MOBAs,
Yeah, I
it
didn't know
refers
that.
to the play style of your team. So aggressive, defensive, so on and so forth. Okay, so as usual, we'll go over left-wing comps, right-wing comps, and centrist comps. I obviously play centrist, so we'll do some more detailed analysis of that towards the end. Okay, so the best left-wing comp, I'd say right now, is balanced aggro. That's going to be 2 bread tubers in the bot lane. So usually you can run a philosophy tube and an FD sig, and then it's 2 justice democrats, 1 in the top lane and 1 in the jungle, and then a left-wing streamer. So Destiny's obviously the most viable right now. His passive is pretty good, which is just straight sociopathy.
One of the things that popped up is this thing that Destiny is a sociopath.
Yeah.
Ignores all emotions and feelings, which is very powerful, specifically in the online meta. But if you want, you can switch him out for, you can do a Vosh. It's okay. It's got some kind of classic legacy type abilities.
In fact, and this is going to be a real hot take.
But as long as you've got the balance of the, sort of active political operatives in the top lane and jungle, and then you have more of the academia type bullshit in the bot lane, that's going to be a pretty well-rounded comp for the left wingers.
That
Another
makes
pretty
sense.
popular comp right
Some
now
nice
is
synergies
the
there.
tanky comp, so that's going to be Hassan in the mid lane,
Okay, maybe I should
Philosophy
move
2 in
my
the top lane, and then just straight
camera
up
here.
2 Antifa members in the bot lane, and then 1 in the jungle. And this is kind of it's kind of unusual because it's pretty rare to have your same champion essentially loadout for both the bot lane and the jungle, but in this case it works pretty well. It's pretty aggressive.
IDF didn't bomb the hospital? Yes, it did. Yes, it fucking did. You fucking piece of shit. Yes, it absolutely did. Fuck you. Fuck you.
It's not as aggressive as the terminally online comp, which is going to be ContraPoints and Philosophy Tube in the bot lane, Hassan still in the mid lane, and then you put Vosh in the jungle, and then you run Thought Slime in the top lane. And this is just an absurd, ridiculous waste of everyone's time, but it's aggressive and, people run this shit, so it is what it is. This comp's not super viable in competitive, but I call it the clown comp. I mean, I don't know what else to call it.
Okay.
It's Hassan and
Extra season
it's
this one, isn't it?
H3 and Hassan in the top lane. Then it's FD Sig in the middle because his ultimate accuse everyone of racism is pretty solid on its own and can kind of, move up. It covers the whole map basically. And then this is the just shits and giggles. You literally run Vosh and Destiny in the bot lane, and then it's just RNG, right? Because when you get Destiny and Vosh together in the same lane, it's just a straight RNG comp, and you have no idea what's gonna happen. And it's it's hilarious. So I call it clown comp. Okay, let's get into the right wing comp. So obviously the main one that everyone's
Alright, now I'm
playing is
cancelled.
America First. This is gonna be 2 mega church ministers in the bot lane, 1 daily wire host. You can switch this out a couple different ways. Candace Owens and Matt Walsh are pretty viable, so one or the other. Let's just put Walsh here for now. And then Tucker Carlson in the jungle, and then obviously Trump in the mid lane. As far as I'm concerned, there's no viable
Yeah.
right-wing comp that is not running Trump in the mid
Fallon?
lane. There are
Fallon?
so many people online just trying to make DeSantis work running into things, but you're just not gonna ever have it work. And oh well, they buffed him with the high heels. It's that's not gonna make a difference. If anything, that's gonna just create anti-synergy with him in the right. So I mean, I get it. DeSantis's passive Florida man is very strong. Ignore all negative side effects of drugs. That's gonna take you pretty far. But and yeah, people are like, well, what about Vivek? It's like, dude, I like Vivek. It's funny. It's all over the place, but there's just no consistency here. And look, if you're gonna run the America First comp, run Trump. There's no argument against it. That's the current meta. Argue with the meta all you want. I hate it, but that's just what it is. Okay, so the Libertarian comp is sort of a mirror match of the tanky comp. So this is Javier Milei in the mid lane. That's what everyone's running now. Thomas Massey in the top lane, and then again, just 3 ANCAPs, 2 in the bot lane and 1 in the jungle. And if you run this into the tanky comp, which is again 3 Antifa members and then Hassan and Philosophy Tube, this is just an absolute shit show, and it's hilarious to watch and competitive. So let's talk about how the Adventures of Zion expansion pack have affected things. So obviously the Daily Wire comp was one of the more ascendant team compositions in the past few years. Very solid, where you had like a pretty broad spectrum of capabilities across the map. You had Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Michael Clavin, whatever. Obviously Jordan Peterson got added, but then they nerfed the shit out of him. They literally put him in a coma and had him like get benzo addicted. And honestly, since he's come back, he's kind of... They've buffed him a little bit. He's gotten back to his main psychology stuff, which is his primary set of abilities. A lot of like maps and meaning, psychology, philosophy stuff. But like as soon as it gets like into fucking culture war politics, that's just not where he's effective on the map. But anyway, with Adventures in Zion, Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro, they actually have... It's basically anti-synergy now. And same with Tucker Carlson. A lot of people would run like a Tucker Carlson in the same comp. And Tucker and Candace will do well together because they're both pretty, anti-neocon shit. But then Ben Shapiro, who's got the Zionist trait, is obviously going to be not vibing well with the anti-interventionist crowd. So the next big right-wing comp right now is neocons. So that's going to be Nikki Haley in the top lane, Sean Hannity mid, Ben Shapiro in the jungle, and then actually you're running the daddy-daughter combo, Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. Which, by the way, I didn't even know Dick Cheney was still in the game. I thought they removed him from a while ago, but he is still fucking lurking around. So if you are like a big fan of like military-industrial complex stuff, this is going to be a great comp for you, and it's pretty viable and competitive. You know, a lot of people like it. Next up is the Christo-fascist composition.
Guys, not even
this is
American,
actually
dude.
halfway decent
What am
now.
I doing?
So this is going to be Mike Johnson in the top lane. Mike Johnson, also relatively new. His ult, Pray the Gay Away, is pretty solid, particularly against left-wing comps, and they probably are going to nerf him soon, but while he's good, you might as well run him. And then you want a megachurch pastor in the mid lane, another megachurch pastor in the jungle, and then you run Jordan Peterson and Nick Fuentes in the bot lane. And this is like, yeah, I get it. It makes no sense, but it actually runs fairly well if you're running the Christo-fascist Masteries and Runes. And someone pointed this out to me, and I didn't believe it, but you can actually replace Kenneth Copeland, or at least one of the megachurch pastors, with Hassan Piker, which I didn't believe, but if you look at their kits, they're actually pretty much the same, right? Super famous, super wealthy, preaching against like capitalism and materialism, but multimillionaires own jets, own mansions, and somehow convinces thousands of ignorant people to give them money despite being uber rich.
Yo, stop cooking,
same
man.
shit. And
Stop.
it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but it is hilarious to, like, you lock in a Hassan Piker on your Christo-fascist comp, people are like, what the fuck? And they're like, oh my god, he basically is just a, mega church cult leader, so if it works, it works. Just run it. Right? So let's get into the centrist team compositions. This is obviously my domain, and I want to break down a little bit more clearly what the essentials of a good centrist composition are, because it's very hard to do. So let's start in the bot lane. The 2 positions in the bot lane that you have to run properly are left and right Vanguard. So what that means is you need someone on the left and someone on the right to establish sort of the parameters of where your party begins and where the left and right kind of ends, right? So I like to run, personally, Destiny or CJ the X as my left Vanguard, and then Tucker Carlson on the right Vanguard. This is like, yeah, this is pretty wide, so you can do that. Another popular one is Sitch and Adam as your left and right Vanguard. Problem is they tend to be too aligned, so you get a pretty narrow range of acceptable Overton opinions, so you kind of want to have it pretty expansive. Another just left-right Vanguard that's very popular right now is Crystal and Sagar. They obviously got good synergy together, and they do kind of have a pretty wide parameter in terms of, Overton window, so you can run them in the bot lane. But if we're just running my ideal, like, theory crafted Centrist team, it'll be CJ the X on the left Vanguard and Tucker Carlson on the right. And then in the jungle, you need a nerd robot. This is someone who has no charisma and doesn't know how to talk to people or have much of a personality, which is basically like, you know, if someone can't last hit, you put them in the jungle, right? So this is where you want to run like a Ryan Chapman or a Coleman Hughes. Either of them very solid. Don't have much, like, you know, speaking charisma in my opinion, but like straight facts, straight Socratic dialogue, very useful. You can run in like a Eric Weinstein as well, excuse me, a Brett Weinstein. But the point is you get someone who's very just like idea focused and, you know, hides in the jungle away from like a lot of the action. So let's say Coleman Hughes in the current comp, you can run either Coleman Hughes or Ryan Chapman really. And then in the tank, you need basically a built body lifter whose name begins with J. So you can do Joe Rogan, Joey Swoll, or Jocko Willink. Any one of these three are going to fulfill your tank role, and you know they all start with J for some reason. But this is a very strong, like, top lane buttress of like they're just going to sit up there and they are going to just hold the line because no one is convincing Joe Rogan, Joey Swoll, or Jocko Willink to go far left or far right. It's just not happening. So we'll run Joe Rogan in the top lane for this comp. And then in the mid lane, this is where you have your old man mage. So obviously I ran a lot of Jordan Peterson back in the day. He got nerfed. I kind of switched him out for actually Gabber Mate, who in the Adventures of Zion expansion pack is actually pretty good in my opinion. Kind of one of the leading voices on the whole issue. So Gabber Mate is pretty well. I've seen people try to run Camille Paglia in the center for your old mage comp. And obviously she's not a man, but like pretty decent, pretty niche. You have to know what you're doing and like you have to understand the whole decadence kind of bullshit, but like that's low-key pretty good into a centrist comp. And then I have tried so many times to run an FD Sig in the center with the centrist comp, but just he does not want to fit in. It just I like him, I really do, but it just he doesn't want to be in the centrist comp. So, you know, that's just how it works. Another decent centrist comp is Attack of the North. So this is going to be CJ the X in the top, JJ McCullough mid, Jordan Peterson and Gabber Mate bot lane. And then you can really throw anyone in the jungle because really, to make it a northern comp, you just need 4 Canadians. It doesn't matter what the 5th is. If they're American, it's still like a, you know, Canadian comp. So that's pretty viable too. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. This has been the recent patch update, politics update. Maybe I'll do some more of these, but right now, time for humor. We're going into 2024. Things are going to change. Let's just fucking roll. All right? Godspeed. Peace.